Mm-hmm.
There we go. Okay, so welcome everyone. Welcome, David. Thank you so much for being part of that. I'm super excited about this lunch conversation. And yeah, thank you so much for being part of our Game Dev Days.
Absolutely.
How are you doing? Let's start with the easy questions, or probably the hard questions in these times.
I mean, I'm fine. I'm like a not that reliant on people anyway, so it's been fine to have the pandemic didn't affect me, I guess, maybe is in the ways that it affected lots of other more social people. But of course, it was still pain and not great. So, but it's fine. I get my next shot, the dose 2 next week, so that should be nice.
Ah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think things are getting a little bit more normal, and then hopefully, eventually, we can also have real events again.
Yeah, whatever that is. But I guess not that far off, probably, if with vaccines.
So before we jumped right into like some of the questions we thought which might be interesting. By the way, like in the meantime, I'm reading the Twitch chat too. So if anyone has interesting questions, they want to pop in, feel free. However, like you have a very interesting background and history, and I mean you are known as a veteran in this
Mhm.
industry. Would you just give us a little bit of an overview, like where you're coming from, like best from the very start, like how did you also get into the industry?
Sure. I started in I actually started in QA at Acclaim Entertainment in many years ago, and I was doing QA on stuff like Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, and Forsaken, and Bubble and stuff like that. And then I wound up staying there for maybe a year and a half. Then I went to what was it? I wound up doing interactive and new media, like doing game design there, and worked with like Frank Lance, who's running NYU's game design program now. And I was there for a few years as an interaction and game designer. And then I think eventually I was decided I wanted to make real games. Um, and I moved to Italy of all places, and then I worked at this place called Milestone and made car games for a little while, and then I stayed there, and then went to Guerrilla to work on Killzone, what became Killzone 2. Um, and then after that, went to Dice and worked on a bunch of different things, but was like lead and lead writer on Bad Company 2, and lead designer and lead writer on Bad Company 2 and Battlefield 3, and then finally went to Overkill and was game director on Payday 2. And then started the studio that I'm at now, which is The Outsiders, where we're making metal, Hellsinger. So yeah, it's been interesting.
I mean, I saw the trailers to Metal Hellsinger. I mean, this looks awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about Metal Hellsinger, and um,
Sure. Yeah.
mhm.
It's like a rhythm shooter, I guess you would say. And um, it's sort of set in this metal universe, and we're working with all these amazing artists and doing like original um, tracks that are kind of like driven by the player. So it's not like they're fixed tracks. So we have like lots of crazy design challenges, which are like, how do you make the shooter part work with the rhythm part? And there is actually a couple games like BPM is out now, and they have their way of doing it, and we have our way of doing it. So yeah, it's really cool though. It's been I think it's my favorite project that I've ever worked on, because it's so weird, and I love music so much. I've really had such an awesome time on it. So yeah, and I started playing guitar as a result of making a game, which is really like kind of the highest praise, I think, if it makes you do something like that. So
How does this work? Is it going well with learning the guitar?
it is, although I don't learn like a normal person. So like I can't watch tutorials, and like I can't like all the stuff that's like, like chord books, or like, to go through the scales, or I can't do. So I just wind up fooling around with guitar, and then I find sounds that I like, and then I like play song. I make songs, like I look for riffs that I want to play. I don't play other songs, so it's like it's just how I do stuff. But it's been really good. I've like, I don't know if technically I'm not very good, but I know what I like, so that's kind of how I approach things.
Cool. And in this project, I mean, you're working strongly together also with artists from the metal scene. How does this collaboration look like?
Um, it's like we have our music team, Two Feathers, and like they work basically. The structure has been like they contact them, and then we work with the vocalist, because the vocalist is like the person that we need. They like add the layer that we do the music, and then we sort of like bring them in, and we write the songs, and then they kind of come in and perform them. But there's like, there's a process of like, once they're in the studio, of working, how we work with them, and like it's been really cool. I don't know. There's a they've all been super cool to work with. So yeah, it's been super great, I'd say. Mm. I mean, they all presented like different challenges in their own way. Like Battlefield, uh, BC2, and I was like writing a lot of what you're writing in that capacity is for like a certain scope of game, and then you go to just the writing prompts that you encounter on a game like BC2 are very different from the ones that I ran into on like this project, because you have like completely different priorities. And like Payday 2, for instance, we had the stealth component in the game that we really wanted to do, but doing stealth co-op is very, very difficult. And so that was a nightmare that took a long time to iron out, just like all the stuff that you had to figure out with both with the people that you had no control over, and with the AI that had to express a bunch of different states to people about, like things that or seem normal in everyday life, that people would react to, like if a person is carrying a gun, or if they're walking out of the house with like a safe or something. Like it's just all this stuff. So those are all different problems. And then, I mean, metal, it's just all very specific to how the overlap of rhythm gameplay and shooter gameplay work with one another, and they're really not necessarily in the same camp. So you have to figure out all the stuff that you don't have to do if it's just a shooter or just a rhythm game, because the two things kind of fight each other. So yeah, we've had a lot of experimentation with kind of like what's the right amount of one versus the other, and we're still working on it, I would say. But yeah, that's been I would say the biggest challenge so far in my career, has been this particular fusion of genres.
And I mean, how do you test that? I mean, do you work closely with testers already, or do you mainly testing with teams or within the
No,
team?
we're doing like a lot of evals with different kinds of like groups. Like we do formal surveys and analyses, and then we have like informal stuff with like, team members or the publisher, external QA, or their dev teams that, they just poll the whole organization to get answers about like what's working, what's not. So we definitely spend a lot of time getting feedback from people, like more than I think I've experienced on most titles.
Yeah, but I agree. This is so important, especially if you're trying out new mechanics. This can be a challenging one.
Yeah.
Um, how many like people are at the Outsiders again at the moment?
Jesus. I think it's like 32. I think so, something like that. I think it's 32. Wait, I'm gonna turn off Slack because I'm getting messages. This is how it is.
Like, hey, I can see you live on Twitch.
I knew that's funny. Um, yeah, I think it's 32.
Cool. Do you have like any specific like ways of project management or team structures which really work well for the Outsiders?
I mean, we went remote very early in the pandemic, and found that that worked for us. I think we organize. I mean, we're pretty fluid. We sometimes like we have teams like combat and rhythm and that kind of thing. But depending on where we are, we maybe reorganize ourselves. And we fought in terms of like production. We have sprints, and we work in I think that way is pretty conventional. But the teams have a ton of autonomy to like sort out stuff, and then just we all kind of weigh in on whether it's working or how it could be better. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think we. I'm trying to think. I'm the wrong person to ask though about like production things. I don't think there's anything that's that's fair, like that's untraditional. I think we just give the teams a lot of like creative rope to hang themselves with, more or less. So it's more or less establish what we're trying to do in terms of direction, and then people go away and figure it out.
Yeah, it changed a lot during the last couple of years now for a lot of companies. So yeah,
Yeah.
but it's good to see that actually like cool projects like Metal Hellsinger were it was announced in the middle of the lockdown, wasn't it? Do you remember this
Was
correctly?
it? I think it was. I think so. I think that sounds right. Um, I don't even remember. It feels like it's been 100 years ago. It was announced, I think, I want to say a year and a half ago, but I'm not sure that that's actually true. I'd have to check.
Um, so I mean, one thing which we had quite as a theme all over the conferences in the past talks was also a little bit about like where to get the inspiration from, for instance.
Hmm.
Is there anything where you specifically would draw inspiration?
For this game,
For instance, but also more general. But we can start with this game and then talk. Yeah.
um, the truth is, it's very rarely games for me. Like, I'm not interested really in drawing inspiration from other games, unless it's like a way that they made me feel, maybe, but not like the games themselves. So with this game, I think it's the way it started was maybe the concept. I was thinking about it in 2000 and whatever it was, 14, right when we were talking to someone about making what became Darkborn. But there were two concepts that I was thinking about, and that was one, and this was the other. And this one was because I was thinking about when I would play Doom and shoot stuff in rhythm with whatever music I was listening to, and I thought like that's a feeling that I liked, that like it felt good, that flow, and I couldn't get it reliably because it would really depend on where the enemies were and when I shot, and it's not like I had any control over it. But I remember thinking, I just want to play a demon that fights way out of hell because I'm always interested in like what's the other side doing. I'm not so much interested in the human perspective because humans, I know what humans do. But I wanted so I thought about that, and that's kind of somehow improbably became this game. Um, but yeah, I think that was the genesis of this one anyway. Um, And like there's other ones like Darkborn came out of me reading John Gardner's Grendel. So there, I mean, I don't know. I really try to not look too hard at games. I think other people can do that. That's I'm not really interested in those influences. Um, they're great. I just don't want to look at them.
I mean, do you play a lot of games in your spare time or rarely?
No, I don't have any spare time. If I did, I would. But I think I used to. I played some stuff. I look at a lot of stuff, but playing stuff I really reserve for stuff that I want to do now because I'm older and I have like, guitar and weightlifting and children and all the things that like are um, consuming my time and the company and all that stuff. So I don't really have a lot of bandwidth to play games. But there's some I'm reserving time for. So, I'll play them when they come out, for sure.
I mean, when you mentioned you don't have spare time, I was like immediately thinking of this ever ca- back coming up but super important topic of crunch time. I don't
Yeah,
know how do you are you dealing with that?
we don't. Um, I mean, we don't to the point where we have mental health days.
Oh, good.
Uh, and like it's not and has never been part of the company culture. For that, we don't believe it's good or necessary. And especially because a lot of us, including me, have been through places where that was a thing and have done it. Like God knows I've done it, and I'm not going to do that again. So, and I don't think it's responsible for us to promote that as a viable solution, no matter whether it makes the games better or not. I don't even think um, is a point worth discussing because the damage that it does is lasting. So yeah, no is the answer to that, I guess.
This is like best news to hear. Very
Mm.
very good take on that. One question which is always like I mean super important because also a lot of young developers are watching these talks. Students. I mean, what do you think? What are good tips if you want to get into the industry? And what are especially also tips which are probably given quite often, which might be wrong?
That's a good question. I think, I mean, it's very different from when I entered the industry. Like now, there's university programs and there's all that kind of stuff. There was nothing like that when I started. But I think that if you want to get into the industry, um, you don't need to wait like for someone to invite you. You can make something. I think that like people learning tools, whether it's using Twine to tell a story if you're a narrative designer, or if you're a level designer, then make something that is interesting to you or that you feel is compelling. Like any of those things that are interesting to you, where you feel like you can do something that is gonna. I mean, the reason you want to work in games, presumably, is because you want to create something. So um, things that demonstrate that you can do that, and depending on what it is, that are fun or beautiful or both, um, those are very convincing. Like if I see somebody has made something good in whatever capacity, that means a great deal to me. Almost in many cases more than it would mean for someone who like worked at Blizzard as a whatever, because it demonstrates that they have the capacity to kind of think autonomously, which a lot of people don't, even if they work at these wonderful places. You have to be a certain kind of person to do those things, and those things happen to be very good, generally speaking, as game development people. So I don't think you need to wait, I guess is what I'm saying, to get like the invitation from whatever company it is, you can go looking for it, and eventually someone will see, and you will get better. That's the other thing. If you're just waiting and hoping to get in, but yeah, so that's the first thing I would say is you can make things much easier for yourself by working on a portfolio, depending on what you're doing. If you're a designer, if you're an artist or an animator. Advice that people give you that's bad. Let me think. I have to think about that one. I don't know. I've heard a lot of people say stuff that is. I think one thing that I've noticed is, and it's been particular, I think, recently, is the way that people interpret job. What do you call it? Job listings on like company sites, and they're like, well, if I don't see my position, then I can't get a job there. And most of the time, that's just not true at all. If you're good, people are gonna look at you, whether they hire you then or not. So don't assume that because they're looking for a senior technical artist that you can't get a job there because you're a technical artist and not a senior. It's just not true. So, and it's definitely not true, like for us. If a person is good, we look to hire that person. I mean, I think any company worth its salt will try to find a way to set that up, whether it's then or later. So, yeah. Don't assume, and also don't assume that those things are up to date, because they almost never are. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, this has been like I think like the best inspirational ending also for this lunch conversation. I think it's by now it's already a tea, like afternoon tea conversation.
Yeah, it's tea.
Perfect. Thank you so much, David. It has
Thank
been
you.
a pleasure. And yeah, I cannot wait to see more from your new game. Looking forward.
Soon, I hope. Soon.
I will probably we cannot hear any dates, right? Everything
Nope.
still at work.
But, soon-ish.
We never
something.
talked about that. Soonish
No.
sounds good enough.
Soonish is good.
Thank you so
Cool.
much. Have a lovely rest of the day and a good weekend.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Good. Okay. So we are soon back with our lightning talk session. This will start in -1 minute, but we will be super soon back. So stay tuned for the lightning talk session. This will be exciting. My favorite session of the game dev is usually crazy 7 to 10 minute talks, 5 after each other from entirely different topics. You will be hopefully also mind blown and flashed by those cool sessions. See you in 1 minute.